Hello and welcome back to Buckle Up. I'm Harry King and this is the brand new Mazda CX-80, their all-new 3-row SUV. But is it any good? We'll start with the styling here at the front, and the first thing that probably comes to mind is Mazda's slightly smaller SUV, the CX-60. This shares quite a lot of its front end, appearance-wise, with that car. You've got these quite small lights, this very large grille. Mazda say this follows their Kodo design language, which is like Japanese for architecture or something. But basically it means it's big, solid, blocky and stylish in a Japanese craftsmanship sort of way. You've got some lovely chrome bits, darker materials down the bottom to help with kind of an aggressive presence on the road. Then moving down the side, this is really where you start to see the differences and quite just how much bigger this is than the CX-60. A lot of the length has been gained here in the kind of rear door area. This actually has a wheelbase of over 3 meters, which is huge. That's like Range Rover stuff. This has an inline 6 diesel engine, so it's got this nice inline 6 badge here. You'll also see it still has a lovely long bonnet. That's to allude to the fact that this is a longitudinal engine. This is a rear-wheel drive biased car. Mazda want you to know that they do have sporting credentials. And then round at the back, we again have those quite squat lights, badging obviously CX-80 all-wheel drive. All models are all-wheel drive. And of course eSky Active D, which is that 3.3 litre straight-six diesel engine with mild hybrid assistance. I also just wanted to quickly highlight the colour. This is a new artisan red, which is a much deeper red than the Sol Red Mazda has also continues to offer. In fact, there's a couple of new colours. There's also a bronze, but I'm going to open up the boot and then remember that I've left all my clobber in it. So I'll just pop that down by you. Here we're presented with what is quite a small boot. Now obviously this being a 3-row SUV, the boot when all seats are in place was never going to be massive, was it? But I actually think this is pretty reasonable for this kind of car, coming in at 258 litres. Now if I pull these straps and drop these seats down, space then goes up to a lovely 687 litres. And then if I dropped the middle row as well, space would go all the way up to 1,971 litres. In terms of boot features, we've got a 12-volt socket here at the side. We have this false floor here where you can store the cargo cover, if you so wish. There's a bit more storage as well. This pops out so you can access the whole thing. Obviously, moving through a bit more, we start to get into the third row features. So actually, shall I go and have a sit in the third row and we can talk about them there? Well, viewers, you join me in the third row, which by Mazda's own admission was only designed to have occupants up to 1.7 metres tall. I'm 1.8 metres tall, so I'm a bit short on space. My knees are high. I'm against this seat back. This is in the fully forward position for the second row. So in terms of feasibly fitting 7 6-footers in here, it's not going to happen. But kids would be delighted with the space, I'm sure. The seats are nice and wide, they're a good material, you've got 2 cup holders on either side, and a USB-C, even on this entry-level model. Nice proper headrest, proper seat belts, and they clip away, so when the seats are going up and down, they don't get interfered with. I think a very good third row as they go, just not one for adults. Let's see what it's like in the middle though. Well, after being in there, this second row is practically palatial. I do have these rolled all the way back now, including all the way reclined, just to see what that's like. This seat is in my driving position and my knees are against the seat in front, but I do sit quite a long way back, so I think people up to 6 feet tall will be perfectly comfortable back here. Also, you've still got a fair amount of tech. So I've got a climate zone back here, a full climate zone with my own controls, 2 USB-Cs. I've got sunshade covers integrated into the doors, which Mazda are proud to say is the first time they've offered that in Europe. So that's certainly a fact, isn't it? I've got this nice finisher along the top of the door here, which helps it feel premium. I've got an armrest. It's not the world's best armrest though, because it kind of just flops down against the seat bottom in front, which means it doesn't actually support your arm particularly well, and the cup holders are just open, so they just end up under your hand. But it's got an armrest, and there's still loads of room in the chair, even with it in place. In terms of sitting in the middle seat, it's a bit raised, it's a bit narrow. I maybe wouldn't recommend it for an adult, but there's plenty of shoulder room in the back of here as well. Practicality, I've got huge seat back pockets, and I've got great big door bins as well, with 2 cutouts for bottles. So plenty of places to put your stuff. It's looking pretty good. Isofix on both outer seats. There's no Isofix in the third row though, unfortunately. Just the 2 Isofix here in the middle row. So if you need 3 Isofix seats in the second rows, you'll have to go and look at one of the rivals. Let's see though what it's like in the front. So here we are at the main event, the driver's seat, and I've got to say, this does feel really rather premium. I love this big centre console, feels super chunky. I like how I'm sat down in the car. I kind of feel hunkered down but still have a bit of an elevated driving position. Everywhere I look, there's soft touch materials that are pleasant. If I go further down in the cabin, I can find a tiny bit of slightly scratchy plastic, but really very impressed with the fit and finish in here. I like all of the controls as well. So the first thing is, Mazda doesn't really do or believe in touchscreen controls. If you plug in your Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, then the touchscreen will activate when you are stationary. So you're able to input destinations or go and find the podcast you want to listen to before you set off. Once you're moving, or if you're in the standard control system, you have to use this central control wheel, which obviously you can move up and down and twist side to side to navigate. Below this large screen, I have my climate controls with physical buttons. Lovely. 2 zones up here, so it's 3-zone climate control, and you do have proper air vents all the way into the third row as well. But temperatures, fan speed here in the centre. I've got heated seats, I've got a heated steering wheel. On the steering wheel, I've got my cruise control stuff and the stuff to control the radio as well. Normal stalks, which are lovely. I've got a drive selector, which actually feels like a proper drive selector, and you move it around, and I can do my driving modes here as well. I've got a 12-volt socket hidden down here and a sort of cubby for a phone with a slightly rubberized pad to keep in place. More radio controls down here and the infotainment controls, as I've mentioned. Parking brake, and then you've got this kind of bifold center console storage area with 2 USB-Cs in it, which is lovely, and that's lined as well, and really lovely, soft and padded on the top. I've got a large glove box that's also felt lined, and I've got big door pockets as well, with a cutout for a bottle, as well as 2 cup holders here in the center console that I can hide away underneath this lovely damped lid. I have somewhere to store my sunglasses up on the ceiling, and then the seats themselves, they're manual in this, but it's easy to get into a good position. They're very comfortable. I like them a lot. They're standard in leather. I suppose the only thing left to do is to drive it. So, driving the Mazda CX-80. Let's start with some basic stats. So, there are 2 powertrains available. This is the 3.3 litre straight 6 diesel mild hybrid variant with 254 PS, which means a 0 to 62 time of around 8.4 seconds. Let's see what that feels like. Ooh, that was quite a kick actually. I wasn't expecting it to feel that urgent in a car this big. And it sounds good as well because it's a straight 6. It's also available with a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder plug-in hybrid system with a combined output of over 300 horsepower and 500 newton meters of torque. But I think, for me personally, this is the pick. This should achieve basically 40 mpg, WLTP. That remains to be seen. This is a launch event. I'm not going to be driving the car miles and miles today, so I don't have time to accurately establish that, but it promises to do well. Mazda have used what they've called right sizing, which is a process I'm aware of in computing with server estates, but they've used right sizing on the engine to find the displacement that got them the best combination of efficiency, low CO2 emissions and performance for this size of vehicle, and they landed on 3.3 litres. I think the main thing with this, main concern probably to a lot of people, is the ride. The CX-60, I've driven the CX-60, and again, I drove it in a similar spec to this. I drove it with the diesel engine, with smaller wheels, and I think the ride is lovely. I mean, it's not the softest in the world, but it's not kicking me about the place. I'm not getting massive judders through into the cabin. I'm wondering if the alloy wheels make all the difference. Maybe I need to get myself into one of the ones with bigger wheels, and I'll write underneath what I thought of that. It's got double wishbone front suspension, multi-link rear. The all-wheel drive system is rear biased, so in theory, if I press on a little bit actually, this should be all right to drive. I've got a heads-up display here with my speed on it. I do like how that engine sounds, and of course now the road is going to completely straighten out. It does feel quite hunkered down and secure to the road though. This has full ADAS from entry-level spec. I keep calling it entry-level. It's a massive 3-row SUV. It's 50 grand. Entry-level isn't really the right word. And from where I'm sat right now, it's hard to see why I'd need to go any higher. Got to be honest. The toys are nice, but I think the bones of this car are really, really solid from a premium point of view. Brakes are easy to modulate, not super sharp on the first engagement, but good feedback, nice linear response. For this scale of vehicle, actually, it's not too heavy. It's only 2.1 tons, which does make it about 600 kilos lighter than a BMW M5. Still, one of my favourite things is how ridiculously heavy that car is. I still think diesels are probably the best choice for a long-distance motorway vehicle or a long-distance cruising vehicle. There are some PHEVs that do absolutely fantastically long distance, but a lot of them will use up their battery and then they become both slightly miserable to drive because they've lost a lot of their power and much less economical. Diesels work best when used for long drives. If you only drive short distances, you commute short distance, or you live in a city where you're doing lots of little drives, buy the PHEV. You'll spend lots of time on electric power, you'll save a load of money, you'll have a happy, lovely time. If you're doing loads and loads of motorway miles, the diesel is the way to go, and I do a lot of motorway miles, which is why I like diesel cars. But yes, towing, this has a towing capacity of 2,500 kg, which is the other big upside to having a diesel powertrain, is the torque means that you're set up to go towing, basically. It is worth saying that the rivals from Land Rover, the Discovery 5 and the Defender, will both do 3.5 tons. So if you want the absolute pinnacle of towing, this probably still isn't it. This also doesn't have self-leveling rear suspension, which again is advantageous if you're going to tow a lot of weight. But if you're a caravanner, or you do maybe a bit of moving a race car around, this will have enough capacity to do those things. I think though, if you like skiing or cross-continental journeys, this would be an excellent pick. A really, really good one. You know, I think there's actually more feel in the steering than I gave it credit for. It's a little numb on centre, but you can actually feel what's going on with the car. Prick down on the brakes, tuck it in. Yeah, this is actually really rather good to drive. And the response from the engine's excellent. I think I've nattered on for long enough though. Let's go back and do a quick conclusion. So, the Mazda CX-80, what am I thinking? I think this is a great buy in two specific categories. I think if you want a 3-row SUV that's as premium as the mainstream premium brands, but without just falling into the trap of looking like everyone else who has a BMW or Mercedes-Benz, this is an excellent buy. It feels just as nice as any of those cars. My Only point to you there would be check out Hyundai and Kia as well, because they do operate at this level too, although not on the level of that engine. That engine is fabulous. I love that 3.3 straight six diesel. And then that brings me on to the other category. If you need a tow car, it's an excellent buy. It's super practical. Even if you don't need the third row, you can fold them down. You have a massive boot. Obviously, if you don't need the third row or lots of space, the CX-60 is also available with this engine and good towing capabilities. But definitely, Mazda is somewhere to give your business to if you still want a premium diesel SUV. And I know a lot of people do. We get a lot of comments about diesel SUVs. So please go and check out the Mazda CX-80. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. You find all the links to all our social medias down in the description. You can also find a couple of ways that support the channel. So we have a merch store and we have channel memberships right here on YouTube. So please go and do one or all of those things. Tell me what you think about this car. Tell me everything you've ever wanted to say about diesel SUVs. Just lay it out in the comments. Let me know. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye-bye.